For much of the year, the unit struggled to stop opposing offenses, allowing explosive plays and giving up points in critical moments. For a franchise that sees itself as a Super Bowl contender, that reality is unacceptable. Jerry Jones has not tried to hide the situation. On several occasions, the Cowboys owner acknowledged the urgency surrounding the defensive rebuild. The team needed to change, needed to respond, and most importantly, needed to rediscover the physical identity that has historically defined Dallas football. Over the past few weeks, the front office has begun making moves to address those issues. Some additions have already been made, and other discussions remain ongoing. Still, around the league there is a growing sense that Dallas is far from finished reshaping this defense. Part of the challenge is that several holes remain across the defensive roster. Certain positions still lack depth and stability, forcing the organization to consider both short-term and long-term solutions as the offseason progresses. The Cowboys currently hold 2 first-round picks in the upcoming NFL Draft, selections number 12 and number 20. Both Jerry Jones and Executive Vice President Stephen Jones have hinted that those picks could potentially be used in trade discussions if the right opportunity emerges. But if Dallas ultimately chooses to keep those picks, another path becomes increasingly important, adding experienced veterans before the draft arrives. And that possibility is exactly why a newly available name has begun to generate attention around the Cowboys organization. Every NFL offseason eventually produces unexpected developments. Veteran cuts, surprising roster decisions, and players suddenly entering free agency can shift the balance of the market almost overnight. That's exactly what happened when the Tennessee Titans decided to move on from cornerback L'Jarius Sneed. The decision immediately caught the attention of teams across the league, especially considering the contract situation surrounding the veteran defender. Not long ago, Sneed signed a 4-year, $76 million deal, suggesting that Tennessee viewed him as a key part of its defensive future. But the reality inside the organization became more complicated as the season unfolded. Injuries began to limit his availability, and durability concerns slowly became a central issue. For a position that relies heavily on speed, reaction time, and physical endurance, that kind of uncertainty can quickly influence a team's long-term plans. Despite those concerns, Sneed's resume still carries considerable weight. During his time with the Kansas City Chiefs, he was part of 2 Super Bowl championship teams and played a significant role in one of the league's most disciplined defensive units. Players with that level of postseason experience rarely become available on the open market without significant demand. And for a team like Dallas, searching for defensive stability, the situation may be too intriguing to ignore. L'Jarius Sneed built his reputation during his years with the Kansas City Chiefs. Playing within one of the NFL's most consistently competitive defenses, he developed into a versatile defensive back capable of covering receivers in multiple schemes. Across his first 4 seasons in Kansas City, Sneed recorded 10 interceptions and frequently delivered key plays in high-pressure situations. His ability to remain composed in critical moments became one of the defining elements of his game. Just as important as his production was the experience he gained along the way. Competing deep into the playoffs year after year fundamentally changes how players approach the game. The intensity of those moments becomes part of their football identity. For younger defensive groups, the presence of a veteran who has already navigated those environments can be extremely valuable. Leadership and situational awareness often develop through those postseason battles. However, Sneed's more recent stint with the Tennessee Titans was far less stable. Injuries began to interrupt his availability, preventing him from establishing consistent momentum with the team. Ultimately, that combination of talent and uncertainty led the Titans to make a difficult decision. While the organization recognized his ability, it also had to confront the reality of his recent injury history. Titans general manager Mike Borgonzi described the situation surrounding Sneed as frustrating, a word that captures the tone of his time in Tennessee. Every time it seemed the cornerback was close to regaining full form, another setback emerged. Over the past 2 seasons, Sneed has appeared in just 12 games. For a player whose position demands constant speed, agility, and physical resilience, that lack of continuity can significantly affect performance. Even so, many around the league believe the underlying talent remains intact. Several analysts have suggested that Sneed's struggles may be more about unfortunate timing and injuries rather than a permanent decline in ability. There is also recognition that the player has remained committed to his recovery. Borgonzi himself emphasized that Sneed has continued working diligently to regain his health. That effort has not gone unnoticed among teams monitoring the free agency market. In the NFL, situations like this often present opportunities for organizations willing to take a calculated risk. If Sneed can return to full strength, he could become one of the more intriguing value acquisitions available during this phase of the offseason. For the Dallas Cowboys, the secondary remains one of the areas that still requires careful evaluation. While the roster includes talented players, consistency was a recurring issue throughout last season. Injuries also played a role in destabilizing the defensive backfield, forcing adjustments that sometimes exposed vulnerabilities in deep coverage. In several key games, those breakdowns proved costly. Darren Bland remains one of the defense's most important pieces, but questions surrounding health and long-term stability have not completely disappeared. Depth behind him remains a point of discussion. At the same time, younger players like Siobhan Revel Jr. are still developing at the professional level. Transitioning into the NFL can be difficult even under ideal circumstances, and injuries only complicate that process. Revel experienced a particularly challenging season after returning from a significant ACL injury suffered earlier in his career. Adjusting to the speed and complexity of the league while regaining full physical confidence is rarely a smooth journey. In situations like this, adding an experienced veteran can help stabilize the unit. A player who understands defensive communication and positioning can bring valuable structure to the entire secondary. For the Cowboys, pursuing L'Jarius Sneed would represent a classic offseason gamble, one with relatively limited financial risk but potentially meaningful upside. Because he was released, his market value is expected to be significantly lower than it once was. That creates the possibility for Dallas to add a proven player without sacrificing valuable draft capital or long-term salary flexibility. Some analysts believe that at the very least, the Cowboys should explore the possibility with a phone call. In a competitive league, situations like this rarely remain open for long. If Sneed manages to regain his previous form, Dallas could add a battle-tested defender who understands playoff football and has already proven capable of performing under the brightest lights. On the other hand, if injuries continue to limit his availability, the financial impact on the organization would likely remain manageable. That balance between risk and reward is often central to roster decisions in the NFL. Ultimately, how the Cowboys approach this opportunity could reveal a great deal about their broader defensive strategy for the upcoming season, and whether they are willing to bet on experience in their pursuit of improvement.